There's a notice, yeah.
Hi, Juan. Welcome in.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you. Good to be here. Always a pleasure.
Yes. So today we're going to be speaking about something a little different. We're going to be speaking about the green card through marriage. And I'm going to be asking Juan a couple of questions that he will be answering with his expertise, as he is a lawyer and he's actually personally helped me go through this process as well. So he's going to be answering some of the most frequently asked questions on this marriage-based visa. And if you have any more questions, do feel free to write them down in the comment section below and we will get back to them as well. All right, so we'll jump into the first question. So Juan, maybe if you could just let us know a little overview of what actually the marriage-based green card is.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, Sarah, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure. This topic and this question is one that we get very, very often. It's one of the most called for services that we get as an immigration law firm. So, what is a marriage-based green card? Well, in effect, a marriage-based green card is a U.S. permanent residency status that is granted to a foreign national, so someone from another country who is married to a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident. The green card, which has some green in it now, it's not totally green, but it's also known as a permanent resident card, allows the foreign national to live, work in the United States on a permanent basis. They can travel. They can do pretty much anything anyone else can do here, with limitations such as they can't vote. Sometimes they can't petition for certain family members that are reserved for U.S. citizens, but it's the next best thing. So right. That is what a marriage-based green card is. It's a permanent residency green card. They're used as synonyms. Mm-hmm.
Great, thanks, Juan. So who can be, what requirements would someone need then to apply for the marriage-based green cards?
Right, so for a marriage-based green card, if you want to be married to a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident, you don't have to be. There are other types of immediate relatives that can petition for a family member. I think that might be a discussion for a different day, but since we're our topic today specifically marriage-based green cards, obviously you want to be married to a U.S. citizen, lawful permanent resident. As we stated, you want to be legally admissible to the United States, which in effect means you don't have any criminal or immigration violations that would bar you from entering the country. If there's anything, this is where, if you have any suspicion that you might have done something in the past that could be a bar or could be inadmissibility, you want to talk to an immigration attorney, such as myself or someone else that is knowledgeable about the immigration laws, because that could be a little sticky point. But otherwise, if you're just here, for example, on a student visa, on a employment-based visa, or a tourist, any type of visa where you were inspected and given permission to come in by a Customs and Border Protection officer, then that you would be legally admissible. And then next, you want to be obviously physically present while you're going through this process, being a bona fide marriage relationship. So bona fide is sort of a fancy legal term that really means that you're in a good faith marriage with that individual. And then and just to elaborate on that, because we do get asked questions from countries where there are arranged marriages, and that's still a bona fide or good faith. It doesn't have to be solely for love, although that is probably the most common marriage. And as long as it's not for purposes of defrauding the immigration office, then it could be considered a good faith marriage. And then lastly, you want to demonstrate that you will not become a public charge to the government of the United States. In other words, that you will not require public assistance to support yourself in the near future, right? And that's something that if you also you if you have any doubts, you want to review that with an immigration attorney. There's certain income requirements that your U.S. citizen spouse will need to meet, right? They want to make sure that the spouse, whether it's the U.S. citizen or the permanent resident that is petitioning for you, has a stable revenue stream that they can support their intending spouse once they are going through the immigrant process or the adjustment process, and thereafter receive the residency status. Okay, so those are in general the requirements to sponsor and to obtain a marriage green card.
Thank you, Juan. And I know, as a follow-up to that question, I know some people have the question of, well, can they get married somewhere else and then go through this process, like in their home country that is not the United States, and then go through this process, or does it have to be in the United States?
Great question. It doesn't have to be in the United States. So that if you're in the United States and you marry your U.S. citizen spouse, then that is a process called adjustment of status. It's one way, it's a very common way to obtain your residency status, but it's not the only way. As you suggested, you can get married in your home country or in a foreign country, and then the U.S. citizen spouse or the permanent resident spouse can petition for you through the immigrant visa process, also called the consular process. So in this process, you will do a similar application, but you will have to wait in your home country and process your immigrant visa through the consulate in your home country. And so it's a bit different. There are pros and cons, because I get asked many times, which way is faster, which way is better. It really depends on what country you're in. Some countries have a quicker consular processing than others. If you're perhaps in Mexico or Philippines or India, the consular process may be a little more lengthy. So those are things to consider and talk to your immigration lawyer about. But yes, you absolutely can petition for your spouse while they're in that foreign country. Good question.
Awesome. Thank you. And then maybe you could, share with us a little bit of what the process may look like for someone if they were to be married in the United States, and what would the process or the timeline look like for them? Obviously, I know this question because I'm going through it, but for you to be able to share with the people watching.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we do this process a lot, and it does vary. You'd be surprised. It varies from client to client as far as the speed of the processing of the application. But in general, once you do have to get married first. Again, you have to get married to your spouse, but directly after that, you can begin the immigration or the spousal marriage green card process. And so what we do, depending on where you are financially and with your marriage, we can either file it as a two-step process or do it as a one-step adjustment of status. So in other words, we can file the family petition or the alien immediate relative petition for your spouse and wait for USCIS to approve that, and then file for the green card residency application. For spouses, there's immediate relatives, there's actually an exception where we don't have to do it that way. We can actually file it all at once. So we can file the alien relative petition, and the green card application all at once. Like I said, it depends on where you are, and if it can be a little more expensive to do it all at once, but it has some benefits. The benefits of doing it is that although you have to pay all the filing fees for the government up front, you can go ahead and apply for your temporary employment authorization, document, your we call it the EAD, but it's the work permit, right? Temporary work permit, which for many individuals here obviously is invaluable, right? It allows you to work while your application is pending with USCIS. And speaking of applications pending with the United States Citizenship Immigration Service, that process it can be lengthy, right? It can be anywhere from a year to 2 years. So, this is where it really helps to have an immigration attorney that's knowledgeable in the process, because we don't want to slow down the process any more than it already is pretty slow. But during the process, you will have to do, in those months and sometimes years that it takes, you have to go a medical exam, right? The USCIS wants to make sure that you don't have any communicable diseases, contagious disease, anything that would harm the community around you. And then you also have to do a background check. So you will be asked to give your fingerprints some months into the process. And they're going to run your background. They're going to run it with the FBI, with CBP, with the local agencies. So that takes a few months after you give your fingerprints to get the final results. But thereafter, one of the last stages is you will be called to do a marriage interview. So you and your husband, your attorney, if you want him to be there, it's optional, but definitely you and your husband or your wife, your spouse, will be called to an interview with a USCIS officer, and they'll just sit you down, they'll chat with you, they'll ask you questions about each other, right? Sort of a little a quiz to see how well you know each other. There's not necessarily a pass or fail grade they give you, but they're just trying to assess, how well you know each other. If you know each other sufficiently to say, well, you guys are married in good faith, and so that'll be one of the last stages of the process. And at the conclusion of that interview, that's when the USCIS officer will recommend your application for approval, and you will get either your conditional permanent residency, if you've been married under 2 years at that point, or your permanent residency card. So that's that'll be the time we celebrate with you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a great explanation of everything. I actually have my I got my notification that my interview is actually coming up, so that's fun.
Yeah, that's
So
exciting.
that too.
Yeah.
I know, right? So I know another question people have then is, I know we already covered, can the beneficiary work? And yes, I know you covered that they can apply for that EAD work authorization form. So we'll go on to the next question, which is, can someone, the beneficiary, return home while waiting on the green card, whether that's for travel or for an emergency?
Great question. Yes. So while your application is pending, you want to be careful about traveling abroad out of the United States if you started the process in the United States through the adjustment of status process. For our clients, we do file an advance parole, permission to travel, permission to re-enter. So you can. So once you get that approved, you are able to travel back and forth while your application is pending. We do always caution our clients, even our clients that have received the approval of the advance parole, in other words, the international travel reentry permit, to be careful when traveling abroad. Immigration laws change rapidly, and if you're abroad, something happens, or if they schedule you for a quick interview, it can be a bit stressful. You have to kind of cancel your planes and cancel your travel plans and come back. Also, if there's any type of inadmissibilities that we talked about before that they discover upon your reentry, your application to reenter, then they also could deny your reentry. So that's something you want to be careful of. But we like to caution our clients, you can travel. It's better if you don't, but if you need to, we know that there's, a year, 2 years, a long time away without going home. And so if you have to, then just be cautious, be careful. But otherwise, yes, as long as you have that advanced parole approved, then you can travel while the application is pending. Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. So then I know we were talking a little bit about that. Obviously, one of the final steps is the interview with the spouse and the spouse, I guess. So what are some questions that may come up in that process? I know you touched a little on it.
Yeah, so that's very interesting. I've gotten the privilege of sitting in on many of these interviews with my clients, and it varies. It's basically at the discretion of the officer. We've gotten questions. A lot of questions are going to be, when's your spouse's birthday? What's his mother's name or father's name? When's the anniversary of your wedding? That sort of thing. We sometimes get questions that are a bit personal in nature. What side of the bed does he or she sleep on? Do they have any tattoos or marks that are not seen to the public? That sort of thing. Does she cook breakfast in the morning? So, they're not hard questions. They're going to be questions that, if you're married, right?
Yeah.
But I've had some of my clients sort of blush when they ask some of these questions. But they won't be difficult questions. It's not like you have to stress out about it. If you're in a good faith marriage, you'll know him. So what time does he leave home? What time does he leave to go to work? What time does she get back from work? It's going to be fairly simple and straightforward. Just be prepared for maybe some a little bit personal questions.
Right. Okay. Perfect. And then I guess we'll finish then with the question of what would be the next step for someone after they have their green cards, if they plan on still staying and living in the United States?
Yes. So next step after your green card. Well, let me just say that if you want to look at your green card, as I mentioned, if you've been recently married, they'll give you a conditional residency, right? It'll look identical to a permanent resident card. The only exception is that whereas the permanent resident card is valid for 10 years, the conditional green card is good for only 2 years. Huh. Thereafter, you must petition USCIS to remove those conditions. They're not going to do it for you. You proactively with your spouse, it's called the joint petition to remove conditions on the green card, on the conditional green card. You must file that petition. I usually recommend 90 days before the 2-year anniversary of that card, that you file this application to remove those conditions so that you can receive then your 10-year permanent residency card. Okay, and that application, the 751 removal of conditions, is probably one of the most lengthy as far as it's taking immigration a couple of years, 2-3 years even. But you don't have to stress out about the length of time, because they will issue you extensions. I think they might be up to 48 months extensions once you file that 751 or the removal of conditions application, because they know it's taking a long time. So you will not lose your status just because the conditional green card has an expired date and it's still pending. As long as you filed it and it's been filed correctly, your status will continue. It'll continue to extend, and then you'll have your 10-year permanent residency card thereafter. And if you obtained your residency status through marriage to a U.S. citizen spouse, you can actually, if you're interested, you can apply for U.S. citizenship within 3 years of becoming a resident. You don't have to wait the usual 5 years, and that's up to you. You can you don't have to apply for citizenship, but many people find that it comes in handy. You can apply for a U.S. citizen passport, and so if your country allows, you can even have dual citizenship in some countries. So that's pretty neat. But yeah, that's what you want to make sure to know, the expiration dates on your conditional residency and even your permanent residency. If you're going to stay a resident, after 10 years, you want to renew that green card. Your status doesn't expire. It's just the card that expires. But we know that for example, some employers don't understand that concept, and they give our clients a hard time when they say, oh, well, your green card's expired. We don't know if you can continue to work here if you've got an expired card. So you just want to go through and make sure you have, the validity on that green card, right?
Right. Yeah. Perfect. Well, thank you, Juan, for answering all those questions.
Absolutely.
I'm sure that's been extra helpful to the people watching. And if maybe you could just direct people with some of your information, and apologies, just clicked off for a second. If you could maybe share some of your information of how people can work with you through this process.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. So again, my name is Juan Castro. I'm an immigration attorney based out of Texas. We handle cases all over the country, all over the world even. You can find our information at our website, attorneycastro.com, attorneycastro.com. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram page, social media page as well. So you can look us up through there. But I think the website is probably the best way. And again, that's attorneycastro.com, or you can call us at 210-251-3972. And we'd be happy to talk to you.
Amazing. Thank you. And I will leave a link to those places that you mentioned as well below this video, so you can check them out down there as well. Yeah. So thank you so much, Juan, for your time and for your expertise.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm happy to always talk to you or anyone else that you send my way. And yeah, let's get your green cards. Let's get as many residents and citizens here as we can.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All righty. Thank you.